With Henry Hill, acting editor over there at Conservative Home. Afternoon to you, Henry.
Good afternoon.
Nice to have you with us as ever. So we've got the names, they're all there. We know that one of them will be the next leader. The smart money seems to say Kemi at the moment as being the favourite, although those things can change.
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch is the front runner according to our survey at Conservative Home and the YouGov polling that has come out. And that's especially remarkable because she actually hasn't been campaigning all that much. She went on holiday and missed a whole lot of hustings. The way that the contest works, with the two finalists going through to the members round, but the MPs winnowing it down to those two, means that there are basically two contests going on at the moment. There's one on the more One Nation wing, which is effectively between Tom Tugendhat and James Cleverly, barring a massive upset. And then there's one on the right, which is, as you say, between Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, again, barring a massive upset.
Who is likely to... Well, who do you think was going to come last of that? I mean, my money's on Mel Stride to not really make any kind of dents. Is that fair?
It would be a huge surprise, based on everyone that I've spoken to, if Mel Stride was not the candidate who was ejected from the round tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. And that overall winner, do you sense that that poll at Conservative Home is likely to be borne out come November the 2nd?
I think so. It's an interesting one because Robert Jenrick has had, by far, I think, the slickest and best run campaign. He was the best prepared, he launched earliest, he had a very, very good media round. But for whatever reason, Kemi Badenoch still has that lead with the members. And that's despite the fact that she wasn't doing anything. Now, of course, on the one hand, that means she didn't have an opportunity to put her foot in her mouth, as she might have done.
True.
But it seems to be a real struggle for Robert to overtake Kemi. Yeah. And I think, therefore, she's most likely to be the right winger in the final round, and the right winger has to be the favourite against Tom or James.
And then, of course, you look at who that leader will have around them. I mean, quite possible that Kemi Badenoch and a deputy in somebody like Robert Jenrick would be quite a powerful duo, I would have thought.
So all of the candidates are being quite comradely and conciliatory, which I think is important. Nobody wants a repeat of the extended public bloodletting that there was between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, which managed to make the leadership contest a huge net negative for the party in many ways. Yeah. So they will have to assemble a team, but the real challenge for the next leader is going to be they're going to have to do some very, very painful intellectual work facing up to why so much went wrong in the past 14 years of Conservative government, why that government did so little to move this country in a Conservative direction. And then, and this is going to be the really hard part, unite the party around a new approach. It's really easy to talk about unity in the abstract, but you need to unite around something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting as the years go on what happens to the Reform UK team. The team of, is it 5 or 6? 6, isn't it? 5. I gave them another MP.
Plus the TUV.
There you go.
sit with them.
That's true. So you've got 5 Reform UK MPs. There's always been lots of rumblings that they at some stage will either cross the House back to the Tories or more Tories will cross to them, etc. That might turn out to be the case. But if whoever wins the Tory leadership can make a convincing case over the years, then they wouldn't need Reform UK.
Yeah, it seems very unlikely. The electoral geography of the last election is actually fascinating because of the 90 seats where Reform UK came second, I think only 9 were held by the Conservatives. Yeah. And the others were nearly all Labour. And we saw this, I think, this morning. Reform UK is going around setting up 120 new branches in Labour-held seats. Now, in the short term, that's good for the Conservatives because it means that they are less likely to face a split on the right in their own defensive battlefields at the next election. And many of their existing MPs, despite how few they have, are on quite small majorities. But on the other hand, if this Labour government becomes very unpopular and a big chunk of that, as and when it finally falls, goes to Reform UK and Reform ends up with 20, 30, a Lib Dem-sized contingent in the House of Commons, that's a permanent split on the right, and that's when you're probably going to be on a long and painful path towards a Canada-style merger.
Oh, dear. We'll watch with interest. We're throwing out the question, who could conceivably beat Keir Starmer? Who should be running the country on behalf of the Tories? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to our next story here, which is that Britain's suspending some arms exports to Israel. It's not everything, it's some things, Henry, of course, as you know. A blow to Israel's Western support because Israel must now contend with this.
I have informed my Right Honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, and he is therefore today announcing the suspension of around 30 from a total of approximately 350 to Israel as required under the Export Controls Act.
I was trying to work out, Henry, and I can't, perhaps you can shine some light on this. So it's 30 out of 300 and odd licences, arms export licences. Is 30 a random number? Is it a type of weapon? What's the detail there, do we know?
Well, this is the interesting thing. We don't know yet. And it's interesting because officially the way this works is that we have a granular approach to issuing licenses, so that you can, you're not declaring that everything Israel is doing is potentially illegal, but you're saying there are certain weapons or certain systems which might be more likely to be used. We don't know what those are. But I think the interesting thing is, officially, the way this works is there is an assessment, the Secretary of State receives advice from the government law officers and then makes a decision. Yeah. But given that this government has only been in for a month, it seems very unlikely that they have received dramatically new evidence than was available to the last government. And 30, as I think you were sort of picking up, is a suspiciously round number.
Yes.
For them to have picked. So we will have to wait to see the details. We'll also have to wait to see, because of course these sort of decisions, they can be judicially reviewed, but unless they are judicially reviewed, we might not get all of the reasoning.
Yeah.
But it's important to note the UK is responsible for a tiny fraction of Israeli arms imports. Like I genuinely think it's less than 1%, although I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. So this isn't going to make any meaningful impact to the Israeli war machine. But what Israel is worried about, I think fairly, is that this sends a signal to Iran and to the various Iranian-backed militias that effectively surround Israel and Lebanon and elsewhere, that Western support for Israel might be crumbling. Yeah. And it would be really, and the danger of that is that then encourages Hezbollah and those other proxies to take steps which might see the conflict in the Middle East, which is currently largely confined to Gaza.
And wasn't it interesting, Henry, because before the election, we had Keir Starmer, who was more forthright than Rishi Sunak on support for Israel. He was clearly doing that thing of, look, I am a very different animal to Jeremy Corbyn, etc. I'm right behind Israel squarely. No call for ceasefires or dropping weapons licenses or anything like that. Whereas Rishi Sunak was not quite as forthright as him. But ultimately, as I think we're seeing here, this is really about a message, isn't it? It's about, it's not in Labour's DNA. I mean, you think of people like David Lammy and Angela Rayner, even Keir Starmer. They're not Israel supporters, are they? In their political ideology, this isn't their territory.
No, I don't think they are. And it's important, I suspect, that this has happened on the same day that Jeremy Corbyn and the four so-called sort of Gaza independents, the four independent MPs who were basically elected on a pro-Palestine platform. This announcement came on the same day that they announced that they were going to form a new parliamentary group, and Corbyn started making overtures to left-wing Labour MPs. Now, Starmer's already under pressure over the two-child benefit limit, which he's refused to lift, the means testing of the winter fuel payment, and I suspect that over the next few years there will be a lot more measures taken by Rachel Reeves especially, which really anger and alienate left-wing Labour MPs. Yeah. So this could be throwing them a bone to try and prevent, perhaps not now, but over the next couple of years, some of those MPs thinking, actually, if we defected to Jeremy Corbyn now and spent 4 years just ruthlessly campaigning in our own constituencies, we could actually win re-election.
Indeed.